Alright, so it's day 2 on our Ferrari 360 project, and I think I have all the parts I need to do the actual work, so I'm going to show you what we have acquired so far. So per the previous video from our combi, I got all my belt tools and supplies, and then from T. Rutland's I got all my screws for the interior components that are missing and the underpan. From Superformance and T. Rutland's, I got all of the coolant hoses I'm going to need, and these are the actual flexible pieces that connect all the rigid piping in the cooling system. And these tend to age out, and if you see some of the videos, the guys have a popped radiator hose on the way home from buying their car. Yep, it's usually these culprits that do it. And then a lot of them are from the radiators, and then coming out of the engine from the thermostat. These are for the heat exchanger. Right here, have that kind of funky reduction effect from the large to the small piping. Then I've got my cam cover gasket so I can check my top dead center and cam timing. These are washers for the drain plugs, oil filter, filter tool, associated O-rings I'm going to need when I'm breaking down the water pump to get that off there to the heat exchanger. I'm also going to go ahead and change out my thermostat while I'm in there because I'll have it all apart. I've got the F1 accumulator, a new heat exchanger here, and then my stuff to do the spark plugs. Got my new spark plugs here, my gapping tool, and then all of the coolant that's required. So all this is basically the mechanic stuff that we're going to need. And then I've also got some fun stuff that's going to make the car look better. I've actually got the actual windscreens here, and these usually degrade pretty quickly from sun and age. Mine are actually turning to a gooey mess. So let's get this out of here so you can see. So these screens right here are what go behind the driver's seat, and these are all nice and pristine and new. The ones I have right now are all just a cracked up mess. But anyway, so we'll be doing that. And on that note of fun stuff, oh, don't tell my wife, but I printed out the workshop manual on her LaserJet printer and burned up like 6 cartridges. But anyway, so on that note of fun stuff, I did happen to acquire some Challenge Stradale wheels. Look at that. So these are the factory set that should be on this style car. Right now it has these current OZ wheels, which I will be putting for sale as soon as I get them off the car. So with all that said, let's get started. Alright, it's day 2. I have a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and get this front pan off and hopefully get the coolant draining today, so when I get back on the project I'm not waiting eons for the coolant to drain out of the system. And this thing right here is the old laser system. I'm going to take it off. We're not going to need it anymore. Plus it looks horrible up here. Half-ass insulation. We're going to chase it down and remove all the associated wiring with it as well. Oh, I love it. So they didn't even put the middle screw in. They just put this over and use the screw hole to get the wire down. Oh, that's really lovely. Alright, so we got 2 more screws, looks like, up here in the back. So this sensor unit, I'm just going to have to cut this wire to get the pan off. Okay, I don't know where this wire is tied in, but to get rid of this sensor I got to cut the wire. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strip back a little bit of the insulation and go ahead and put some electrical tape on here. Because this system has constant power once you energize the ignition, and I do not want to short anything out. So I'm going to go ahead and just cover this up with some bright electrical tape so I can see it. And I will, as I'm getting ready to do the final finish up on the car, we will track this wire down and get it out of the system. I did see another invoice from another dealership where they were having issues with blowing fuses and it was tied to the friggin' install of this thing here. So anyway, that'll keep it from getting us any further trouble. Right now we get this pan out of here. Come on. Yeah, looks pretty good underneath here. No damage, because this car was reportedly hit a deer. They didn't have any pictures of the damage, but they said it was just this passenger side headlamp was replaced. And looking up underneath here, I do not see any type of paint work or frame damage. Everything looks fine. Yep. Alright, so we're going to come over here and drain the right side radiator. There we go. Alright, so I just went up top and opened the cap on the radiator tank bottle up there to let the suction go so this thing would drain better. Hard to tell how much I got out of there. I think I got a gallon, but it's not nearly enough. So it's still draining. There we go. Oh, I thought it slowed down. We got more. Since this is slowed down on this side, I'm going to go ahead and put the cork back in it. Drain plug, we're going to go hit the other side and drain it out. Not much coming out this side. All right, while the car is on the lift, we're going to go ahead and do some of the undercarriage work here and get some of this stuff taken off so we don't have to go up and down the lifts quite so much. So take off this cover that covers the drives. All right, probably have some screws up above that are going to hold that. Now I'm going to loosen the tensioner pulley a little bit. And now we're going to back off the tension on the belt. You see the pulley is coming down toward us. The belt's getting loose now. Make sure I can get it off the pulley. I don't want to have to get underneath here again for a while. There we go. Okay. So that one's ready to go. Now I'm going to come over here and get this lower little pulley off loose. Stop. There we go. All right, so we got that one there. All right, so now we're going to loosen the air conditioning tensioner pulley here. Here we go. All right, and this will help us loosen the belt here. Here we go. That's pretty good. Okay, I should be able to get that off from up above. So it looks like from now on we can go up top and work. We're going to remove the cam covers on down here. What's this other little thing attached to it up there? It looks like a metal flange or a...
it looks like it's a bracket.
Where's it holding?
Good question. There's some cable and a sensor that it's supporting.
No.
It's underneath the frame rail, so I really don't have it. I can see it through the camera, but I can't put my eyes on it.
Trying to look-see.
Right there.
Okay.
Hey. Finger tight.
Not bad. Not bad, Yuri. I see a little oil drippage.
Okay, pop that little bracket off and slide it.
Bracket off. Okay. See movement?
It's coming off now. There you go.
Come on, baby. Is it just a gasket or it's got a bunch of pookie up there?
Clean.
Yeah, they just use a gasket with no RTV.
Yep.
Makes it nice to clean. Okay, I'm going to go after the one with the bracket on it. Where are you? I see you. Okay. The bottom one was loose.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, colorful language, begin.
Oh, I'm trying to get this cover that was up here over the pulley down. There we go. I dropped it to the ground. And those go with that. That's good. So I've got the drive belt off of here. So that's the alternator belt. Now I need to loosen this plumbing here, get this hose out of the way. And this hose was going to get replaced anyway. So I've got to loosen up this bracket that's holding this water pipe in position. Here we go. And this will loosen up this water pipe so I can move it out of the way and get the cam covers. So we got the cam covers off, the belt covers off, and we're just, wow, that belt's pretty loose. Look at that.
A little sloppy.
Yeah, that's really loose. Good thing we're doing this in the bearing. Is one of the older style bearings. Looks like an OEM bearing actually. But here's our timing marks here, so we'll spin this thing around and we'll get it lined up. Let's go ahead and dive into this one over here now. Okay, there's that one. One more right here. Come on. There we go. Out. Now let's look at that one and see how that belt's doing. This one is actually pretty tight. Look at that. But this one is flopped in the wind. Wow. So somebody didn't do their job right. That's horrible. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go after the water pump so I can get to the heat exchanger. That's our next deal. And I see it sitting right back there. This is going to be fun. So I got to get the power steering pump off in order to get the water pump off to get to the heat exchanger. So I'm busy pulling the bolts out of here to get this thing out of the way. Now I actually got the power steering pump loose. I can now come in and break free these 4 bolts down here to get the water pump out. So that's next. Okay, there's 2. There's 3. There's 4. I've now got this pipe here disconnected from the water pump here. So the water pump's all loose. I now got to get this heat exchanger pipe back here in the back loose. And then I'll be able to pull this thing out. This one's going to be a tight fit. I'm using a real small socket so I can get back there on top of that clamp that's holding that heat exchanger pipe in. Gosh, it wasn't very tight. Come on. All right, I got it free from the heat exchanger. I got one more pipe down there. Yep, it's the one that's going back to the tank, looks like. After disconnecting 2 hoses off the back side, this one goes to the heat exchanger. I got it out, finally. Okay, after much fighting with 2 box-in wrenches, or spanner wrenches, finally got this thing loose. Oh, there we go. So here's the heat exchanger. Right here. So as of now, all I've got left is I got to go in there and get that rubber. There's a reducer coupling. It looks like this. It's in the back in the V of the engine. I got to get that replaced, which I have, but you can see it. Get some light down in there. So you can see it back there with that clamp on it. That's the heat exchanger part that I got to get the reducer fitting there. And then replace that rubber bushing and put the new ones on as I come forward, and then we have all new piping there. Looking good. Wow. Man, that's some work. So I need to get in there with my little wrench and get that last little one off, that last clamp. This little tool here is a lifesaver. This is what I've been using to get those hose clamps off where I can't reach very well. It would help if I didn't have so much coolant and grease on my hands. Needless to say, just staying dedicated to it, trying to get this done. Man, this is a challenge. But after it's all said and done, I'll have a car that's dependable and don't have to worry about taking a dump on the side of the road with a popped hose or something. Making progress. Oh, well, got it. And here's the other one. So I figure while we're in here, these things are, I don't know, 40 bucks. Might as well replace it and not have to worry about it. All right, I have my new heat exchanger reducing coupling here. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. Screws are all going to the left, so I need to get them on the left, just so I have them on there. Okay. Looks like we're ready to go. Such a dark cavity. Oh, there it went. Boom. That was not that bad. Okay, cool. I'm gonna slide that sucker in position and then tighten it up. All right, so now I've got the water pump out, and I might as well change the thermostat since I'm already in there. And it's gonna be in this little housing right here. So I'm gonna buzz this thing off real quick so we can get to it. There we go. Easy as that. So here's the actual thermostat. So we got a little O-ring in here we got to replace as well. And here's our new one. Okay, so the next step in this process is to get the heat exchanger connected back to the coolant lines on the transmission and to get the hoses replaced in here. And these are my new hoses over here, that long runner there and this one here. Those go from this coolant bottle here under the plenum into the water pump right behind the passenger compartment. In order to ease the work to get the heat exchanger installed, by loosening this coolant bottle here, taking out these 4 10mm nuts, I can push this bottle forward along with those hoses, make my connections in the engine passenger compartment, and then push all that unit back in, put it in place, then reconnect up the bottle. That way I'm not struggling underneath that plenum with wrenches trying to torque down those clamps and those banjo fittings. So let's get started by removing the coolant bottle and pushing this thing forward. Little magnet to help get these things out in tight areas. So I don't want to scratch up anything here on the engine, so I'm going to just lay this towel here. And then this is a hose here that we're going to replace. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one off right here. Okay. So this one here, we're going to pull the new one through to the inside of the cockpit. So I'm going to use either a barb fitting or some tape. And then we're going to take this new hose here, connect it on here, and then pull it on through to the cockpit, and that can connect on the water pump to it. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I usually use these brass barb fittings, and I'll put them in the hose, and they're tight enough that I can tape it together. It doesn't come out and pull the hose through. That's how I chased all of my hoses through on the 308 through the frame for all the brake booster lines, vacuum lines, fuel lines. I don't actually have a brass barb fitting on me today that works, so I'm going to very carefully tape these two pieces here end to end. I don't need much force. I just needed to drag this other pipe right through that plenum, right where this one is laying without any problems. Okay, here goes hose number 1. I'm going to pull through. There we go. So now, here's the old pipe that I just replaced. It's now out of the car, and the new one is in. All right, the next one I'm going to figure out is the smaller one here. I think it is this one. I believe. Let me check. Okay, so that one is correct. So I need to cut off this auto clamp here. I can get the hose off of here. There it is. I'm going to connect up my new pipe to this old one. I'm going to pull it through. Now I'm ready to pull the new one through. So we'll get inside there and we'll pull this one in. All right, I got this one in. So now I got that one replaced. So I'm going to systematically just replace the pipes like that and all these critical ones here that are in the valley of that engine, taking that heat, and we should be okay. So I'm going to set this back down temporarily. We are now going to be ready to hook up the heat exchanger. Okay, here's the old heat exchanger here. Doesn't look all that bad, but 18 years old, I don't trust it. Here is the new one. It's a different company, it looks like, that made it. So hopefully it's better. But if you notice, before I pulled the banjo fitting off, I put a paint indicator mark on the banjo fitting and on the nut, and I transferred it to the new one. This way I know I can get my orientation of the banjo fittings just right, so this thing will nestle in the valley of the engine just like it was before. So let's get started putting this thing in. Alright, my goal is just to get this thing in there and try to get it tightened up where I can get on it with a torque wrench. I'm trying not to have to disconnect the banjo fittings in the back, because after looking at it, there's a lot of shields that got to come off and everything else. So I've got to get this unit here in the back, and I've got new dowdy washers here that go on the banjo fittings, so I got those, and I think I'm going to try to get it. It looks like the one in the back is going to be the worst one to do, but here we go. So I'm going to try to get that fitting on there first. There we go. Now try to get this unit in there. Get that thing. Oh, I got to get the washer first. See, almost forgot that. I need a washer between the unit and the banjo fitting. There we go. Push this unit back in there. Man, that is going to be something else to get in there. Just got the heat exchanger, just slid right in the coolant pipe with no effort. Now that'll hold it in position. Maybe I can get that banjo fitting in there now. Sure was easier to undo it than it was going to be to do it. Okay, so after about an hour of struggling, I got the new heat exchanger in there. That's this guy right here. The hard part were these blasted banjo fittings. There's one there and one way back there in the back, which you can barely see on the back side that I had to get in there. So I've got to put the adapter fitting on, the coupling here that goes from that metal to the back of the water pump. Here's our new water pump hose we pulled through earlier. We'll hook that up, and then we'll hook up the new hose to the tank. Alright, so we're going to replace the O-ring on the back of the water pump, and so I'm going to go ahead and prep the O-ring with a little bit of our moly coat. A little bit of here in the groove where the O-ring's going to sit. And this will also help me hold it in place while I mount the water pump. Don't have to fight it when it's trying to mate it up to the block. O-ring right in there. Holds that in place nicely. Alright, now we're going to try to get all the hose mated up to the back of the water pump. So the new hose that we pulled from the engine compartment is going to connect here. Our new hose from the other side of the water tank is going to connect here. The heat exchanger is going to connect in here. So we're going to go ahead and try to situate this thing. I'm going to turn you around here. Okay, I got a little Dawn soap and water. I'm just going to put a little bit of soap on my fittings there so everything will go in a little easier. Otherwise we'll be fighting it. So first things first, I'm going to grab this water line from the tank, get it on, there we go. Alright, there's that one. Now we're going to do the little one here. Okay. 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 Now that I've got these two hoses attached to the back, we are ready to slide the pump in position and bolt it up. Make sure my O-ring's still there. Yep. There we go. Make sure my O-ring's still in there. Yeah, it feels like it. Yep. Get my first of a couple bolts in here. Now I got the water pump in here, and I just got the bolts snug. I don't have them torqued. I've got to get the power steering pump in here. Let me get this pivot bolt in. Okay, now I got that in there. This is the adjuster bolt here, so I got to get this thing put in. So it's gonna go right. Actually, I think I just screwed up. I think I have to thread it in first. All right, now we go back and put this in. Threads into the pump. Set that in place there. There we go. Okay, I got it started. It's amazing, this adjuster screw actually threads into the body of the power steering pump instead of just pushing on the body to set the tension, and then you torque it with the other bolts. Okay, I think I've got enough where I can get it in now. Yeah, there we go. There's the pivot bolt there. And we got the adjustment bolt up here. Okay, so we're ready to receive a belt now. Now I gotta get my torque wrench so we can torque the water pump. Now that the water pump is in, I'm gonna go ahead and put back the coolant tank and the hoses. I got my Undercarriage clamp for the small hose, Undercarriage pliers, and my hose clamp. So we're going to go ahead and make the connection on the big hose first. So we come in around here, lay this thing on its side, and I can come in and get the hose on. There we go. Okay. Now, with the bottom hose on now, I'm going to go ahead and reseat this thing. Alright, connect the small hose now. There we go. And then I'm going to put the hoses down here in the correct notches in the wire in the hose loom, which I finally got these hoses in the correct location. Whoever worked on it previously had them out of sequence. There we go. Put the tank back in position. Give a little bit of torque here. Okay, the tank's back in place. Get my hoses snapped back in. Ready to go. There we go. So this is all buttoned up here. All right. Now we're going to go back in and torque up the water pump. All right, I'm going to tighten up the water pump bolts, 25 Newton meters. There's one. There's two. There's three. There's four. All right, so it's the end of day 2, and got quite a bit accomplished today. Got my little list here. And so far I've got the front under tray out. We've got the coolant drain down. We removed the accessory belts. We've got the cam covers pulled off. Removed all the spark plugs. Removed the timing belt covers. Pulled out the water pump, the heat exchanger. Replaced the thermostat in the water pump.
And then we also pulled in new hoses from the rear coolant tank down into the water pump area. And we've got the heat exchanger reinstalled and the water pump reinstalled, all torqued down and ready to go. So tomorrow we're going to dive into actually doing the timing belts. And we'll have probably another long day of doing that. We're going to replace the tensioners and the associated bolts with that and get that portion of the job done, and hopefully get all the accessory belts back in, and then we can start putting the car back together. But another little project I've been working on, if I put together this little parts bin here for the 360, I got this at Home Depot for like $8, and I've got all my stuff like coolant clamps, crush washers for the oil changes and the gearbox changes, Autoker clamps when you're having to cut off some of these coolant lines and so forth. You have to use Autoker clamps on there versus your worm drive clamps. So anyway, a neat little thing to organize. Kind of geeked out on this, but you know, it makes it a lot easier for me to do maintenance. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.